It's good stuff.
Welcome back to the American Museum of Speed here in Lincoln, Nebraska, here at Speedway Motors, of course, where tomorrow night at the Cornhusker, the Hotel Cornhusker, we will crown all of our champions in IMCA weekly racing, our national champions, series champions, and you can watch that all live and free. Yes, that is three letters, two of them twice. Free. It's free, Scott. They can watch free tomorrow.
They can.
3 different letters, one of them used twice. Scott Gray, our Southern Sport Mod driver, with us out of Utah. Scott, welcome to Lincoln.
Thank you. We flew in this morning. I've only ever drove through here. It's a nice little town, and this museum is something else, isn't it?
It is. I mean, and that's what everybody talks about. Everybody says, well, I remember when it used to be in Des Moines, and I remember when it used to be at this casino. But right here, where we're sitting tonight, you've got to go around and walk the museum. Tell me your thoughts on this place.
Oh, this place is unreal. I didn't expect 3 levels worth, obviously. But the cars that they have in here, some of the old sprint cars and the old Indy cars and Tony Stewart's USAC car and the old Kinzer car I really like. And there's just so much history here, They got the car right around the corner here that they look like they dug out of the weeds, the number 8 car and old jalopies and flathead Fords, and they got everything here, David Pearson's car, they got everything. It's just amazing.
Yeah, where you talk about that's a new wing back there. That wasn't there when we first started coming here for the national banquet. Like you said, it's the 3 levels, and like we've talked about, it's not only cars and roadsters and this. I like the pedal cars.
Yeah, a whole room of them.
And a whole room of lunch boxes.
Yeah, lunch boxes and planes and you name it, and they got it up here. It's amazing what they've done with this place.
Now, off camera, I was talking to your manager, and she says you're kind of a big deal out there in Utah. I don't know who the gal was. She knew a lot about you, but
she has to say that legally.
Oh, she does.
Yeah,
is it the contract you have with your service that she provides?
Yeah.
Tell us about your season in Utah. I know, the Southern Sport Mods. We up here north, we've got the Northern Sport Mods. We don't, like Brett and I were talking earlier, the closest racetrack to Boone for Super Nationals was 9 hours away.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about the Sport Mod the Southern Sport Mod division, how you got started, and some things like that.
Well, obviously, out there in Utah, we have very few tracks. We have 3 tracks in Utah that run IMCA, and that's it in the whole state. Pretty big state, 3 tracks. And only 2 of them ran this year. So as far as sport mods go, we ended up importing the Northerns to run with us also. So we had a better field of cars. And, obviously there's advantages and disadvantages both ways there. You talk to the Northern guys, and we have too soft of a tire and a big spoiler. You talk to us, and we don't have any suspension, so I can see how it goes both ways there. But the competition's actually really pretty good out there as far as Northern and Southern goes. There just happens to be, I think, a little bit better caliber and knowledge of drivers in the Southerns, so they probably compete a little bit better. And when the tracks dry out, like they do out there, what they always do, I believe that the tire that we bring is superior when it dries out. That 60 is a little bit harder, and our IMCA 500 will grip a little bit better. So when the track dries out, we get a little bit better forward launch off the corner, But obviously, center of the corner, we don't have it like they do. So it goes back and forth.
And that was the thing that at Super Nationals this year is, we'd have a lot of fans come up to us, announcers, what's the difference? What's the difference? What's the difference?
There's a difference.
And I knew a little bit of it, but like you said, there's the tire. The suspension you guys that you are able to race is a lot more limited than
Correct.
the 2-bar suspension up here on our Northern Sport Mods. You
Correct.
guys get a spoiler. We
get more of a spoiler.
Yeah, you get a bigger spoiler.
Correct.
Around, little taller spoiler. And that was a noticeable thing, to the fan at Super Nationals was the taller spoiler.
Right.
With the less suspension and the taller spoiler, what does that do different to that race car?
With it not being a bar car, I don't think the spoiler affects it as well. Obviously, a spoiler is an advantage no matter what you do, and you can talk about that in several different ways, depending on what angle you got. Is that just slowing you down? Yes, it's giving you downforce, obviously. but how much is that impacting the car on forward momentum, all that stuff. But like in a bar car, we drove late models too, and I've seen late models smack the wall, rip half their spoiler off, and you wouldn't even know it, you know. I've also seen them do it, and the guy can't drive anymore. But as far as our cars, I think it helps. Obviously gets downforce on the back tires, and like I say, as far as us drying out so much, as much pressure as we can get back there, the better off we are. So the big spoiler definitely is an advantage, but I don't know how much advantage an 8-inch spoiler is compared to a 5-inch, because we got guys in Southerns running 5-inch spoilers that compete just as well. So and at the end of the day, I believe it's obviously all in what setup you got into the car, how you drive it, and how you get to the front, you know, obviously.
Now talking with your manager, she tells me that you come from a long line, third generation racer.
Third generation.
In the Gray family. Tell us kind of how you guys, you know, how your grandfather got started in the sport, and in what division, and then how everything transgressed down to you being a third generation racer.
So in the 50s, in the 1950s, my grandpa started driving the old flathead Ford jalopy style cars. He always drove number 100. That was his number. Had the goat on the side for some reason. I don't know what the deal behind the goat is, but that was his deal. But he had some buddies there that had raced, and they got him into it. So he did that for several years, ran the association there locally. They had a couple different dirt tracks start up, and they moved it a couple times. And then he quit, and of course my dad was born in the late 50s. And then in the late 70s, my dad started driving. My grandpa was kind of a car owner at that point. He had done some sprint car sponsorship for Salt Lake, Rocky Mountain Raceway. It was the old Bonneville Raceway back then, asphalt. My dad bought one of them old cars, started driving in Price, Utah at the old fairgrounds in a B Sprint is what they called it back then. And he moved, I think he ran 1 year, and then he moved on to Sportsman, which basically turned into a late model at that point, and ran late models for several years through the 80s. Ran the track in Price for a few years, the association. And then in the mid-90s, he decided he was done late model racing for a little while, and we went and bought a sprint car, Gambler chassis sprint car. No, excuse me, it was a Maxim.
Oh, you had me at Gambler, because that's back in my day.
It's way back.
Yeah.
It was a Maxim. It's too far back, but and he
Don't
drove that for a few years. And then he quit for a while. I was, in the late 90s, I was 20 years old, and I had wanted to get into racing, but just never could afford it. Nothing ever worked out, and 3 or 4 years later, I decided it was time. I had some money, so I went and bought a late model, and he went and bought another late model, and we started late model driving again. And that's kind of how I started into it. So we was driving late models, and little brother decided he wanted to drive, so we had a pure stock. We put him in the pure stock for 1 year, and he won the championship at Desert Thunder Raceway in it. And next year he went into Sport Mods, 2011, and in 5 years he won 4 state championships in it while we were still dabbling in late models. And we finally dabbled into the Southern Sport Models. Late models got a little too expensive, so we got into it. And I just ran when I could, schedule permitted, and this was the first year that I was able to run all year. We ran the only 20 events. That's all we had for Utah, and we had a great year. It was phenomenal. Ended up winning 17 of them events. 17 wins, a second, a third, and one night I broke down. So
ain't a bad deal. You get to grace the stage, get some hardware and some jackets tomorrow.
Exactly.
And Scott, we appreciate you making the pull, or making the flight in from Utah. It's been great having you here on IMCA TV. Share with your friends. Let them know tomorrow night with the banquet. It's going to be on. It's going to be free.
For sure.
And great talking to you.
Appreciate you having me.
Talk to you tomorrow night, and I'm sure we'll see you at Super Nationals next year.
God, I hope so. Thank you so much. Appreciate
Scott,
it.
what a great season.
Thank
great
you.
to have you.
Thank you.
We'll be back shortly back here on IMCA TV at the eve of the night before the IMCA National Banquet here on IMCA.TV.
Awesome.